Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? I have one thing to say. You want to do a dungeon with me? And that was the lovely Carla for her guest starring moment. Everybody give her a round of applause. So, she was just commenting that this is the third time I've done this intro for this episode. That's how hard it is sometimes, guys, I tell you what. But, here we are, episode 3 of Hey, you guys, you want to do a dungeon with me? I apologize for posting this late. I had some equipment malfunctions. I am down a graphics card now, but I do have a new capture card, and I'm hoping that this video does turn out decent. I've never used one of these before. They're relatively simple. I do like the fact that they are based off the USB bus, so it's more CPU usage than GPU usage. But again, I don't know what the final product of this thing is going to look like. I've heard some bad things, I've heard some good things, but you're seeing it right now. And I hear we have guest stars coming. No, apparently not. Okay, that's what happens, folks, when you try to do a show and somebody backs out the last second. You have no guest star. But I digress. Now, as always, we start our show with a word from our sponsors. Our sponsors are chauffeur services provided by the horse you rode in on. When you have to get somewhere, get there with the horse you rode in on. Childcare for staff provided by Anita Break. When you need a break, see Anita Break. And finally, the manager of our complaint department, Helen Waite. That's right, if you want to complain, just go to Helen Waite. You'll get taken care of. Our legal correspondents and legal department for the show, do we cheat them and how? At their prices, do they cheat you? Oh, how? Anyway, let's get on to the show. So, as you all know, all you trillions of longtime viewers, one person, I usually format the show into 3 sections. I'm not doing that tonight with the advent of the equipment failure I've had, the lost footage, the lost recordings, and how many times I had to do the intro. I've kind of lost the rhythm of that format I was going to do tonight. I also realized that there's an upcoming comedy release that I'm supposed to do, but I don't know if I can get there. Just haven't been in the mood to laugh lately. That being said, I did make a commitment to make these episodes, so we're making one right now, gosh darn it. Golly yee, gosh darn it. So, where to start? In the news recently, again, not my usual format, all you hear about is the Ukraine. Now, I hate to be a talking head on this because real people are dying, real people are losing their homes, real people are losing their families. But we in America have lost so much sight. I have friends that actually watch Al Jazeera, which is the Muslim Middle Eastern news network. You think that would be the most propagandized news you could see on the planet. But it's kind of not. There are so many facts and figures and information that the U.S. News does not report. They simply skip over. One of the things that I am highly interested in, but they don't want to talk about, is when Joe Biden got elected, there were Ukrainian officials that accused him of crimes that want to come to the United States and testify against our newly elected president. So, what was his first action as president? To put these people on the top of the CIA's most wanted list. Yeah, because that's a danger. If you did nothing wrong, people accusing you of a crime, that's the country's biggest problem. But that's what happened. And now, that country's being destroyed, run over. And they're supposed to be one of our very good allies that we're trying to help and mentor and bring into the free democracy of the world. And we're doing absolutely zero. Now, you can say that's not true. You can. I mean, the banking system, the world bank system, Visa, MasterCard, all that kind of business stuff has cut them off. The internet has cut them off. But that doesn't stop a government. And at the end of the day, once they have the Ukraine, once they have those resources, once they have that oil, once they have that timber, once they have that uranium, once they have that silicon, once they have that titanium, once they have whatever it is they want, the world has to knock on their door to get it. The world is not going to be like, oh, you got that wrongfully, we're not going to buy it. No, life will just go on. And I really feel that our current American administration is going to let this happen like this. They're going to happily look incompetent and allow this to happen. But make no mistake, no confusion. This was planned. If I were to predict anything, Russia will take over the Ukraine. Whatever they're after, whatever resource they will claim, and they will bring back to Mother Russia to distribute and sell as they see fit. But the things you got to watch out for is the nukes. I'm not talking about the nukes that Putin currently holds. I'm talking about the nukes that were left over in the Ukraine after it broke away from the Soviet Union. Now, these nukes were supposed to be decommissioned, but nobody really had eyes on. So, either the visible nuclear material is still sitting in that country, or the actual missiles themselves are still sitting in that country. So, in a war, in a crisis, how easy is it for that material or those missiles, if they're still whole, to disappear? And once the resources and perhaps these missiles and perhaps these government officials have made their complete disappearance from the face of the earth, then Europe and America will come be the good guys and rescue the Ukraine again. But it's too late then. It's a, it's a plan, and it's really sad that we are too busy arguing about racial rights, about gender rights, about transgender. I'm not saying that those things aren't important. I'm saying there are more important things to take care of. So, and I really think a lot of those rights we fight about are oversold to us. It's just, it's a shame, it's a reason to cry to watch how our country, our citizens, so vehemently disagree with each other. There used to be a time where you could say your opinion and it was what it was. But now we attack each other if we don't agree with each other. Now we call each other names like racist and bigot and, you know, go down the slalom of things. Snowflake, liberal. Does that solve anything? Does that fix any of the problems? Does that change anybody's mind? You called me a snowflake. You're right. I should be tougher on gun control. No. Just pushes it further away. Because whether they want to physically outwardly show their hurt, it happens. But usually they just take that hurt and internalize it, use it as more fuel not to want to think about, not want to open their mind to the other side. So, what I'd like everybody to do tonight, little homework if you will, is to think more not about my idea, my idea, my idea, my way, my way, my way, but maybe my idea, what's yours. Just a little food for thought, which I realize I'm putting out very early in the program, but it kind of tied into the whole Ukraine thing of the fact that we're just letting this country be slaughtered and not doing anything about it. Quite literally. We should be embarrassed the Ukrainians are fighting back with tractors. I mean, come on, that's some Red Dawn stuff, really. I hate to bring comedy to it, but we make movies about this stuff. And here is this country we helped break away. We helped stand them up. We helped make them what they are. We're supposed to be helping them evolve into a first world country, which we're not even in anymore, but whatever. And we're just going to sit on the sidelines and watch them get taken out. We're going to complain about people crossing the borders and starving and their kids being in cages. But here are people that are directly in the situation because of us. Not because they chose to cross the border, but because they chose to listen to us when we told them they should break away, and now they need our aid, and we're not doing anything. I can't make it up. You want to search for problems? There's a problem. We put the Ukrainians in this situation, but we do nothing to get them out. So, I think it's a good time, a good segue to move on to the next portion of our show. So, the reviews are in for the 6500 XT. The 6500 XT is a graphics card by AMD. It is their answer to the chip shortage. And I know if you keep up with tech news like I do, you're reading all these bloggers and all these reviewers saying the chip shortage is over. The graphics cards are going to come back. They're going to be affordable again. That is about a year and a half to 2 years away. A lot of these bloggers are jumping up and down about the prices of chips in England coming down. It's only 50% above retail. That's still overpriced. Yes, it's better than usual, but it's still overpriced. And it hasn't hit America yet. And I know beggars can't be choosers, but the 6500 XT is based on last year's architecture, which is what I recommend that they do anyway, is use the old chips since there's a shortage of the new chips. But from the reviews I've seen and read, they are severely lacking, disappointing. They get beat out by the GTX 1650, which has been around for like 3 years. The 1650 is a great card, except it's missing video encoders. They did this to increase the speed. And of course, in the same price range, relatively speaking, you have the 1660 Super, which has 6 gigs of RAM, has the video encoders, and works very well. Add to this the fact that NVIDIA is going to now perhaps put out a 3090 Ti with 12 gigs of RAM. We're looking at a very interesting shopping season next year, depending on how prices go. I believe the 3090 was speculated to list price at $1,599 US. The 6500 XT, which it looks on benchmark paper to be a workhorse, but like I said, I've heard reviews where the actual output, it doesn't support the number of monitors it claims. It doesn't have as good of crispness at 4K. Its crispness luminance numbers are like 420. You really want those to be 422 because it's the best we can produce right now. And while those luminance and different values in that formula don't make as big a difference at, say, 720p and 1080p, 422 and 444 are not going to be that distinguishable. When it jumps to 4K, it's the difference between night and day. You have less contrast, less breadth across the colors, so everything kind of just blends together. Think of it this way: if you have a 20-sided dice, a dice with 20 flat surfaces all around it, or even 100-sided. Imagine if each one of those is a pixel. Each one of those little flat triangle or whatever shaped sides is a pixel. Now your pixels move out of alignment with the pixels that they're surrounded by to create different colors. If you're in 4K, you have more pixels, you can create more colors, you can create more shades of colors to create detail. Take your multi-sided dice with all these flat edges and pretend it's made out of a metallic glittery color. Now, as you move that dice very slowly, you will notice that all the edges, all the planes, all tend to shift in color. And that's what you get when you have more pixels. That is when that color contrast and luminance ratios of 422 come into better play. Not that you could not see the difference between a 720 and a 1080 with a 422 difference, but you can tell immediately on 4K. Immediately on 4K, one of the major hurdles right now is getting 140 hertz, because if you do 140 hertz with 422 ratio in 4K, the colors bleed together. I don't know if it's a fault with our pixels or just we just don't have the technology to achieve that currently. And 8K is pretty much the same way. Now, theoretically, if you could adjust that to 444, you could get that 144 hertz with no color bleed, but we're not there yet. So that's a little bit of tech news for everybody, like I promised. As far as gaming, I'm really excited. Yes, this is good. I'm so glad I remember to tell you guys. Evil Dead the game is coming out. If you haven't heard, if you're an Evil Dead fan, oh my god, this is it. So let's talk about this because I got a lot to say on this subject. I have pre-ordered the deluxe edition, and I will be streaming it day one. Here are my issues. Everybody at home just said, "Oh my god, this guy's always got issues." Evil Dead was a great franchise. It's had several other video games prior to this one, so I'm hoping this one's not a cash grab. Problems I have is when I'm reading about it, even the description from the boss crew, the studio that makes this game, which is a no-name studio, and typically when you give a no-name studio a title that can be used for a cash grab, they do it. We lucked out with EA and Rocksteady getting Batman back in the early days. They did a great job. They didn't just write on the name Batman. They made a great game. It could be Detective Man. You could take Batman out of the equation as long as they had the lore that they had with Batman to work with. It would have still been a great game. They used the lore. They created more lore. They almost read gamers' minds as far as what you need, how to make a combat system that was not only intuitive but grew and learned as you grow and learn. A perk system, much like the skill tree that every game has nowadays, wasn't like that back then. They were one of the original innovators of those systems. But typically, when you get a big name, a movie, TV show, whatever, that comes to the video game arena, it's very, very low expectations. And from what I'm reading, is it cooperative dungeons and PvP? Where's the storyline? Where's the campaign? Evil Dead is a story. Not that I don't find Bruce Campbell funny, because Bruce Campbell is amazing, but I don't want a game where I walk around slashing zombies with Campbell delivering one-liners, and that's the game. We're past Nintendo. We can do better. Bruce Campbell, I love everything he's done. Sam X, wonderful. Ash Williams, wonderful. Bubba Hotep, oh my god. There's nothing this guy can't do. The only thing he's done that I can even remotely think of as a failure is Jack of all trades. And if you're a Campbell fan, you know the show. It was based on the Xena Hercules platform of history done funny. Events in history they poke fun of, blah blah blah, and Jack was a scallywag back in the colonial days. And the only reason I think the show didn't do well was not because they copied the premise. No, it was Bruce himself. Sorry, Bruce Campbell, you're the great one. You've been able to pull off everything, but you had a show that was formatted and designed to be a 6 o'clock show, 6 p.m. show, almost family time for TV. Not quite prime time, low budget, funny, and you continually bought misogyny and innuendo, and not in a subtle way. And that's a lot of Bruce Campbell's characters. They just straight out say it in a funny way. But in that time slot, you can't be like that. And Yes, the show might have done better had they moved it to a later time slot, say 9 o'clock, 9:30. But also, at least when I watch TV, if it's regular TV, not streaming, I'll tend to notice that shows are kind of made for the time slot they're in. Between 2 and 4, typically cartoons and toy commercials. 4 and 5, typically news or reruns of shows that you may watch. 5 and 6, some really cheap show. Then after 6, the shows progressively get more big budget as more and more people are tuning in before bed. And then after 9, between about 9 and 10, you get the bigger budget, bigger star shows with some adult humor. And then after 10, of course, you got the night show and all the other stuff. I think had they reformatted the show for the after 10 audience, it would have made such a great, better run. Because you already had Briscoe County Jr., which was awesome. But in the role of Briscoe, Bruce bought a lot less of the toilet humor and more of Briscoe just being the hero, the funny man, the straight guy, the I didn't know that was dynamite guy, with none of the hey honey I got dynamite stick that he tends to do. Anyway, back to the game. So Bruce is in the game, not just as Ash Williams. He voices all of Ash Williams' characters because you've got Good Ash, Evil Ash, Mini Ash, Night Ash, and you've got all most of not all most of the people from the series have agreed to do voiceovers. So I'm really hoping it's good. I'm really hoping there's a story, not just dungeon crawl after dungeon crawl. Like I love Diablo. Don't get me wrong. Diablo was one of the first video games that got me into gaming. Okay, Diablo was very well done for its time. The procedurally generated dungeons were genius. Do you know how many games copied that idea and still couldn't get it right? A ton. But the days of go in the dungeon, go down the levels till you reach the final level, beat the boss, come up, go to town, sort out your gear, find the next dungeon. Those games are old hat. They've kind of had it. Now you can say, oh, it's the same with every game. To a point. Even World of Warcraft does this. Go to the quest area, work your way through the quest area to find the boss, beat the boss, go back to town, trade your loot. But when that's all it is, when there's no crafting, when there's no story, when there's no, like World of Warcraft is the same, but there's so many dungeons and so many quests and so many that it's more open world. When the closed world games are done, and I really hope they don't do it like this. I feel bad I bought the deluxe edition to get the season pass because if it's just going to be dungeon, go to town, sort out loot, dungeon, there's not much that season pass can offer me. Oh, more dungeons. Just please, 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 please let this have story. I have read that they actually delayed the release of the game by a year so that they could develop a single player campaign. So I'm really hoping, since they took that input from fans that they wanted a single player campaign, that they took that entire year and they actually worked on it. But we will see. Time will tell. Really praying this is great. Really praying it's not a cash grab. Can't even talk. I'm so emotional about Evil Dead. But I have fears because of the name, because Bruce Campbell's never going to play Ash outside of this game again. I just feel this might be one last grab for the money, and I may have messed up buying it. Now, Bruce Campbell has said he will never be Ash again, and that he will not sanction anybody else playing Ash. And he said several reasons, but one of the reasons I think from watching The Matrix, which isn't Bruce Campbell, it isn't Evil Dead, but if you watch the new Matrix, one of my only complaints, which I had several, I'll actually do a video on The Matrix, was that Keanu Reeves did absolutely no action. He looked old, he acted old. There was never a point where he did anything beyond I'm Neo. Whoa. And I think that's because Keanu Reeves is old. He can't take the fake fights anymore. Even if they're fake, they still take a toll on the body. So I think he's like, I'll read the script, I'll show my face, but I ain't jumping off the roof. And I kind of feel that Bruce Campbell feels the same way. You might say, oh, it's props he's getting hit with. He doesn't really drink boiling hot water. No, they are props. They are fake. They are special effects. But there's still a physical element that takes a toll on his body to do all that. Especially with him and Sam Raimi, because him and Sam Raimi have a huge reputation for insisting on realism in all their films. Hell, Sam Raimi designed a costume for a spider so that we could see the spider bite Peter Parker. Yeah, that wasn't CG. That was an actual spider on the actor in a costume. A spider in a costume. Let that float through your brain. So imagine how much was prop and how much was real hit. These guys insist on the best. They want it to look over the top. They're not going for realistic special effect. They're going for real that is so overdone it looks like cheesy special effect. And I don't know why, but that's the way they like it. And that really takes a toll on the body. Now I know Bruce said that it was also an issue of pirating, that Stars was having issues continuing to fund them because the show would come out and then people would pirate the next day, so Stars wouldn't get any viewership. They get no viewership, they get no ratings, they get no funding. But I honestly think that in today's economy, the way TV is watched has changed. I don't think any of us have a show that we watch on the channel it's produced by at the time it comes out. You'd rather watch the season all at once. Or you'd rather get it from Hulu, Netflix, blah, 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 blah. Because it's easier to at your fingertips. And if you miss an episode, it's still there. So I don't know if that's actually a reason. The show still had a great cult following. It was well known. But who knows? I don't know why he doesn't want to do one last movie to pass the torch to a new Ash, whatever name you want to give this new character. But hopefully the game can maybe extend the lore, extend the canon, and keep the franchise alive for a while longer. And we will see. Anyway, my next video will be on the Matrix. You'll have a great night, and until next time, number one, thank Carla when you see her, because she is the masterful, gracious, lovely, and most perfect sponsor of this show for your entertainment. And as always, till next time, hey you guys, you want to do a dungeon with me? I know I've already signed off, but I'm editing this video. Number one, I apologize for the audio quality. Again, I'm still learning how to do the streaming thing, and I've edited this video pretty much ad nauseum tonight. I'm leaving it how it is. Take me as I am, as they say. But I also want to touch on something. So nobody watches this program, so I don't know why I feel compelled to point this out. But I talked about rights earlier, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm diminishing the war for civil rights, if you will. But I am saying that we have a modicum of equality in this country that keeps getting trampled on. Nobody wants to talk about what they have and what they've earned and what they've been given essentially by their ancestors. It's always about the tortures they go through. And I don't diminish any of that, but I do want to say, pick your head up, point it in the right direction, and see what you get. Nobody ever got anything by saying something was wrong. But that in and of itself is a problem. There are children, and when I say children, I mean below 30, fledgling adults in this country that have heard these great stories from their parents about protesting and revolution and they think that's the way to be a hero. Well, those protests, those revolutions were not consequence free. Part of the revolution, part of the protest is suffering through the consequence, proving your character that you believe in this cause and you will pay for this cause. Now I'm off subject. The entire reason I want to do this prologue was to say that I don't diminish civil rights in any capacity. I'm just saying, would you rather work on erasing racial hatred or ensuring we don't have wild nukes running around the world that nobody has track of that could appear and do anything they wanted at any time? There is a level of severity here that you really have to take with a grain of salt. I just, overall, if somebody does eventually watch my show, love it, hate it, see it for the piece of junk it is, whatever, I just don't want you to think that I personally don't care about the fight for rights, because I do. I have a deep personal feeling about it that I'll probably put out in my next video. Anyway, thanks for listening. That's all the time I have.